I'm Yvonne Hamoud, registered social worker and owner of New Moon Counseling. But out of the office, I'm a mom, wife, daughter, sister, and friend. Join me each week as I sit with a special guest to discuss everyday things that impact our mental health. We'll be chatting about everything from mental health and relationships to media and current events, as well as personal experiences and reflections, all in the hopes of normalizing our humanness and helping you see that you're not alone. This is Outside the Therapy Room. Hi everyone, welcome to Outside the Therapy Room. Today we are joined by Rhonda Chamberlain. Hello.
Hi.
How are you today?
Great. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. As we do for all brand new guests of our show, we want to get to know you. So can you share a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So yes, my name is Rhonda Chamberlain. I am a physiotherapist and a pre-postnatal fitness coach. I've been a physiotherapist since 2010. Most of my career, I've been in a gym setting. So yes, I love to help people get out of pain, but my favorite passion is helping people get strong and build strength for the things that they want to do in their life. And so worked at a CrossFit gym for about 10 years. In that time, near the end of that time, I had 2 daughters and had a bit of a more challenging recovery with my second daughter. Dealt with some prolapse symptoms, which even as a physiotherapist, those of you listening who maybe have a physio background will attest to the fact that we don't actually learn a lot about pelvic health in the traditional program. I think that's changing. I think it's getting better. But I personally felt very clueless about how to navigate my prolapse symptoms and continue exercising in a way that was going to feel good and not make my symptoms worse. So basically went down a rabbit hole on my second mat leave and learned all things pelvic health. Basically became obsessed about it and started to realize, okay, this is what I want to do in my career. I want to sort of gear my practice towards helping moms navigate postpartum because there is a lot of gray area misinformation out there that can be hard to navigate. And continue to help them build strength, feel strong, to do the things that they want to do, like keep up with their kids and do sports and activities for the long haul. So that was basically 2020. I started my own business. Started fully virtual. So I did that for about 3 years. And since then I've added 2 days a week at Encompass Health and Wellness in Kitchener. So kind of do a hybrid now of in-person and virtual. And yes, I just love to help busy moms figure out how they can fit exercise into their life in a way that's realistic and sustainable. And like I said, help them navigate any symptoms and pain that they might be dealing with that can deter them from continuing to exercise. So keep people moving for the long haul.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I love that you said trying to help moms feel stronger, because our topic today is on this bouncing back, this kind of expectation that society has on moms kind of losing the weight and kind of the focus on being thinner. But I really liked how you focused on the strength of keeping up with our kiddos, carrying car seats. Like there's so many things that we need to be strong for our kiddos.
Totally.
So thank you so much again for sharing a little bit about yourself. And yeah, your passion really did kind of develop from your own experience.
For sure.
And being able to support other moms. So that's really amazing. And we will have information on your services at the end of our episode today. But today we are diving into a topic that I know I faced, and I'm sure a lot of mothers have faced, which is this pressure to bounce back after pregnancy. And so that's kind of going to be our focus for today. And I guess my first question, which, as I was writing some of these questions and trying to figure out how we were going to dive into this topic, I was like, where did this idea of bouncing back even come from?
Yeah.
And I remember as like a teen going into the store at the checkout, magazines everywhere would be focusing in on pregnant celebrities or new moms who, again, just had a baby. And the focus was on, wow, she did it. She looks great again, or she's bounced back. And so what are kind of your ideas of what bouncing back even means?
Yeah, I think you are right spot on that a lot of it comes back to media and the things that we see online, in magazines, that type of thing, where, yeah, we see these very perfect examples of women who, I always say to my clients, it's interesting how we celebrate the pregnant body, but the postpartum body, we want it to change and go back to quote unquote normal
Right.
as fast as possible, right? So yeah, we see these celebrities, we see athletes with beautiful pregnant bellies, and we're celebrating them and we're like, wow, they look amazing. And then as soon as they're postpartum, it's like, how fast can they bounce back is sort of what we see, the messaging that we see, right? And yeah, I think that's a huge part of it. And now, social media has grown so much. So we see a wide array of examples. And I know for me, I come from a CrossFit background. So I would see a lot of examples of CrossFit athletes who, yeah, super fit, staying active their whole pregnancy. And then almost overnight, they're back to competing and back to having a six pack as soon as they deliver. And I think it can be definitely very damaging because we don't know what's going on behind the scenes for those folks, right?
Yeah.
They might look amazing and they might be dealing with symptoms that they're not talking about.
Yeah.
So even if they're, pushing themselves to look a certain way very early postpartum, they might be dealing with leaking or prolapse, and we don't know about that, right? B, they're going to have way more resources than any of us have, right?
Yeah.
So they're going to have people cooking for them and preparing their meals and, showing them what to do for fitness and caring for their children. So yeah, it just can be very damaging trying to compare to those examples because it's most often very unrealistic.
Unrealistic, and I think also, as you pointed out, there's so much support and things that we don't see behind the scenes. And so a lot of time for celebrities, we don't know when they had their child, but now they're like posting videos and doing all this, and we're assuming that, wow, they bounced back, when in reality we don't know when that video was taken
For sure.
or how long out of their postpartum they actually are. But as you pointed out, that comparison can be really damaging for us as moms. And I know from my own experience, my firstborn was a large baby. He was like almost 10 pounds. And I still looked pregnant, like quote unquote looked pregnant.
Yeah.
Like 3 months after he was born, I had a lot of skin that was kind of stretched, and I wasn't looking like I bounced back. And I remember I had a really hard time because my expectation was that right after baby comes, I'm going to go deflate. I'm going to deflate
Yes.
like a balloon and go back to normal. And I remember packing in my overnight bag leggings from pre-pregnancy, thinking I was going to fit in those. And when I didn't, I remember crying at the hospital, being like, I don't fit in these anymore. And my husband had to go out and grab me like my maternity ones
For sure.
to kind of wear to like come home. But I had this expectation that I was just gonna like boom, slim back down
For sure.
to what it was before. And having that, again, the comparison that I held between my body and those bodies that I saw with celebrities and in magazines and movies, media, wherever, it was really difficult. And it did kind of give me a moment of, like upset feelings. I was really
Definitely
confused and distraught about why that was happening. And so it can be really hard for the pressure that we can put on ourselves. And as you pointed out, social media now, we're seeing influencers show us like post or pre-pregnancy, the day of delivery, and then post, and they're back down to having a six pack, as you pointed out, right?
Right.
It can be just a lot of things that we're comparing ourselves to.
Yes.
And it's, again, a natural thing for us to compare, but it can be quite damaging.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's a big thing I talk to my clients about is get very specific about curating your experience online, especially in the vulnerable postpartum phase. And that's something I tried to do. I unfollowed all of the CrossFit people I was following because it was making me feel some kind of way that they were back to competing and I was not. So just making sure that if any, account or person that you once followed that was motivating is suddenly very triggering, you can unfollow or mute them for a phase of time and just, create that experience that's going to help you feel better about yourself.
And that's setting those boundaries, right? To like protect our mental health in that time and just really focus on the recovery piece and bonding with baby and like all of those things.
Yes.
One thing that can often frustrate me as a woman is that mothers, especially after pregnancy, were judged so harshly in comparison to dads.
Yeah.
And like there's the dad bod, there's like all of these things that I know maybe like if we talk to men, they're probably also not happy maybe being compared or being their bodies being called like dad bods. But why do you think there is so much more focus on mom's body in comparison to dad's?
Oh yeah, that's a great question. I feel like that just is systemic, right? It just comes back to the patriarchy that, yeah, men are in control, men can do what they want, and women were just supposed to be small and little and not say much. And that comes back to our appearance, right? And we're there to perform for men, essentially, right? Yeah. So I think it's so ingrained in our culture that, yeah, men rule the world. They do what they want. They can look how they want, and we're going to celebrate the dad bod. And women, yes, you must be in control and small and shrink yourself. And that's all that we're expected to do.
Yeah. And the focus to be like, you're the one to please the men or like your husband. And so you need to slim down so that he finds you attractive again.
Exactly.
All of these horrible things.
Such BS.
I know. Awful.
Yes.
And like, again, you talked a little bit about not only are we physically recovering, but mentally and emotionally, we're dealing with so much, like an influx of hormones. We have a new baby we need to keep alive. Like all of these external expectations, maybe even familial expectations that people around you have. And then you have like your own pressure that's coming up. And so I think like obviously beyond the physical, these expectations can take quite a toll on our mental health.
For sure.
And many women may be feeling some shame for not slimming down as quickly or like being stuck in this comparison place, and feeling guilt for not being able to snap back and whatever kind of shows up for them. And so how do these unrealistic expectations contribute to women's mental health?
Yeah, it's huge, right? Like you just said, there's so much pressure put on moms in the early phases of motherhood to not only look a certain way, but be a perfect mom. And I think times are changing. I don't know if you would attest to this in the profession you have. I think our generation is getting a lot better at talking out loud about how hard it can be. I think our parents' generation, probably grandparents, it was all like rainbows and butterflies. Oh, it's so beautiful. And one of the things I like to do with my clients is we'll share like a peak in a valley. So just honor the fact that yes, motherhood is beautiful and wonderful, and it can be very hard, to help us just feel less alone about that. So yeah, so not only are we trying to be the quote unquote perfect mom by, feeding in the right way. There's a lot of pressure about that. Sleep training or whatever, however you decide to, approach that. There's always, anyways, any topic you come up with, there's going to be such extremes, right? And so we're focused so much on that. And then on top of it, we're expected to look a certain way and bounce back quickly. So yeah, that's overwhelming, like extremely overwhelming. And I remember feeling that, especially after having my second daughter. When, after I had my first, I felt like I had a decent handle on things. The beginning was very hard. But after a couple months, I was like, okay, I got back to the gym. I had great support from my husband, which was wonderful. After having two, something about just like the mix of now having two children, I'm sure you can attest to. I was just so overwhelmed, and then also dealing with prolapse symptoms, and then also feeling this expectation to lose the baby weight. And I went through a tough phase where I did end up kind of going on a bit of like a diet, and I'm like so anti diet culture now. I've really kind of gone the other way, but yeah, I really succumbed to that pressure. And especially I think for me as a physiotherapist and a fitness professional, I felt even more pressure to look the part of a fit physio. All that to say, it did not go well. And basically from that day forward, I said, I'm never doing that again. I started to practice a lot of just self-kindness, and we'll get into this later with questions that you have, but started just change my outlook about my body and realized why am I doing this? Question, why am I doing this? What's the point? And so, yeah, I think just having all of those things that we're dealing with on those early postpartum phases, and then also dealing with that stress of trying to look a certain way, yeah, just mentally, emotionally takes a massive toll.
Yeah, I mean, it can really impact our, postpartum depression, postpartum anxiety when we have like these expectations in terms of our body, but also everything that you pointed out, like how to mother,
Yeah.
breastfeeding or reforming, like
Yes.
all of these things that there's so many opinions on. Again, people around you, your own kind of expectation of what those things were going to be, and then throw this on top of it. It's just like extremely overwhelming.
Yeah.
And I remember like just kind of similar to how you shared, right? Like first pregnancy, after a few months, because I also had a really tough like first, like maybe first month, first few weeks. But after a few months, I was trying to go for walks and doing all of these things. And I had a C-section, so I had to be a little bit more careful in terms of like lifting and things like that. But it was hard, and I didn't have the, I guess, motivation or energy to go to the gym and to do all of those things that at one point really benefited my mental health. But there was a different relationship that I had with working out. Instead of it being like, oh, this is something that I do because it makes me feel good, it was, I need to do this to lose weight, to like grab all of this loose skin that realistically is never going to go back into place where it was before. But this was like my expectation. So my relationship with exercise was changed for a little while.
For sure.
But what I hear from a lot of clients who have been in this position before is kind of like a dissociation that happens where they may not recognize their body anymore after going through that, right? If you're breastfeeding, your breasts look different, your stomach looks different, your whole body is holding everything kind of differently and kind of feeling this disconnection or like this disconnect from their body. And that can be really triggering for a lot of clients that I've spoken to before. It's like, I don't even recognize myself anymore.
For sure.
So although that does kind of go into like our body or body post, body pre, or body before pregnancy, body after pregnancy, not really seeing the connection there. There is again a lot of that impacts on the depression and the anxiety that we can experience.
For sure. Yeah, 100%. Yep.
Yeah. It's tough.
So, it is tough.
Yeah. I mean, you talked a little bit about this, but what are some ways that moms can kind of reframe their relationship with their body during recovery?
Yeah, that's a great question. And that, sort of touched on that a little bit with my story. I did a lot of work in that second postpartum phase, working on my relationship with my body, with exercise, and with food. And I come from a background, I was a gymnast growing up, so I had a lot of interesting relationships with all of those things across my lifespan. So, what worked for me was, going onto, if I was going to be on Instagram, I was going to start following accounts that talked about more like body positivity. I unfollowed or muted accounts that were very diet culture heavy. I focused more on gratitude as much as I could. I think I say to clients a lot, it can be very challenging to go from always wanting to punish your body and, maybe hating or disliking your body to loving. And I think that's sort of like the expectation is self-love, and body positivity is its own movement too. Making that big leap can be very impossible for some people, right? And so I always say to my clients, can we start with gratitude, right? And just focusing on, thank you, body, for everything you've done for me. Thank you for birthing these beautiful humans that are in front of me. Thank you for keeping me safe during this really hard, challenging time where I'm under a lot of stress. Thank you for, holding on to the necessary body fat that helps to nourish my baby if I'm breastfeeding. Thank you for just doing all the things that you need to do to survive. And so I think if we start to kind of look at things that way, instead of just always like punishment and disdain for our body, that can slowly start to churn us away from the hatred of our body to being more like neutral and maybe eventually loving our body. And I don't think it's realistic to always love your body.
Yeah.
We're always going to have days of poor body image. But if we can kind of come back to that like gratitude piece, I think that really helps.
Yeah, that's definitely something I practice in the therapy room with my clients. And it's getting to a place of body neutrality.
Yeah.
So you're right. Body positivity, it's such a huge leap that if we are like, I love my body, it feels very forced.
Yeah.
And we don't believe it fully. And so if we can just go to like a neutral place and focus on the facts, the fact that your body did birth these kids, that your body is strong. You have strong arms carrying your 2 kiddos up and down the stairs, that your body allowed you to, be able to stand up and take your kiddo for a walk. Like focusing on that, like the facts and also the gratitude of what your body is allowing you to do, it brings you closer to this body neutral place. And then eventually maybe down the road into more body positivity. But it can be really hard sometimes to be in that place. But what I appreciate you saying is also doing that with compassion for yourself.
Yeah.
We're going through so much in the postpartum phase. We need to practice compassion throughout that. That may be in how we show up for our kiddo, how we show up for our family, how we show up with the tasks and responsibilities that we have, but also how we show up with ourselves and in our body and our expectations.
Yeah. And that was a big part of it too for me, was noticing the self-talk I would have with myself in that early postpartum phase. And I really noticed I had sort of like 2 sides of me, right? And so for me, coming from an athletic background, I had sort of like the athlete Rhonda, and then I had like the nice, compassionate Rhonda, and they were often at odds with each other, right? And so I vividly remember like laying on the couch because, again, I was dealing with these prolapse symptoms. So as I started to learn more about pelvic health, I recognized I had to rest. I wasn't good at resting. I was a very go, go, go. I still am, but now I recognize that rest is equally as important. So I would catch myself, resting on the couch. And, one side of my brain is like, Rhonda, you're on mat leave. You have this time. You're so lazy. Like, why don't you just do a workout? Like, you have time. Baby's napping. And then the compassionate side was like, no, you also need to rest. You don't need to earn your rest. You deserve to rest and heal. That is part of your healing journey too. And so I always say to clients, like, try to let that compassionate brain eventually win out more often than that like harsh side, right?
Yeah.
So learning self-kindness and self-compassion was a skill that I had to work on and still continue to work on. And that's something I really help my clients work through. And I always say, try to talk to yourself the same way you would to your son or daughter or to a close friend. You wouldn't say to a close friend, oh, you're so lazy. Like, why aren't you working out yet? And, oh, your stomach looks disgusting, right? Like, that's just not how I would hope you don't talk to your friend that way. So starting to tune into what would I say to a friend if they came to me about this issue? How would I speak to them? And that's really something I tried to work on and encourage my clients to do as well.
Yeah, and that's the first step to building that compassion, because it is a lot harder for us to be compassionate towards ourselves than it is for us to be compassionate to other people. It comes more naturally when we're with other people and showing them compassion. What you just described is like parts theory, which I love. So like we have an episode on this with the wonderful Melissa Pine about IFS, and so we talk about these 2 parts. Were made up of a whole bunch of parts, but the parts that came up for you was the athletic part and the compassionate part, and then butting heads because each of their goals were very different. Right? Like your athletic part had this goal to continue building on your athleticism and not lose that, and push kind of that tough love, you can do it, get up, you have the time. Whereas your compassionate part its goal was to keep you safe and to keep you kind of healing. Right. And so those kind of goals are obviously going to butt heads, but it was lovely kind of hearing you describe like those 2 parts that were kind of showing up for you in that, because I think that happens for a lot of us. And sometimes even in postpartum, we have numerous parts. We have the part of ourselves that's compassionate. We might have a part of ourselves that's critical and who is criticizing what we are doing and how we look, how we're parenting in that moment. And we might have various other parts that exist within that. And it's really important that we allow the compassionate kind of self-care part to show up a little bit more, to maybe like be a little louder
For
than
sure.
the other one, so we can kind of continue through this very wonderful and rewarding journey, but also very challenging journey
For sure.
in the best way.
I love that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have a psych minor. So I always say to my clients, I'm like
Yeah.
a little bit physio, a little bit, therapist. So I'm not stepping on your toes, but you know what I mean? I like to
Yeah.
have those chats. I think it's so important to overall health and well-being. And I refer out to therapists all the time because the work you all do is amazing and so needed.
Yeah, thank you. It is, again, like the role of compassion holds so much space in a lot of different areas, right? And a lot of different professions. So holding that space for your clients is so important as they're going through these very challenging things and frustrating, right? We can feel very frustrated over our bodies for not being as strong as we used to. Or, just like a few weeks ago, I hadn't worked out for a little while because it was my birthday and we went out and like all of these things, and to come back to the gym and do like my curls that I would normally be able to do so many at a certain weight, I suddenly couldn't. And I was like,
Yeah.
body. So there's like some moments where we can experience frustration.
Yeah.
And then also kind of talking to ourselves in a compassionate way. So compassion is a huge piece of kind of practicing that self-care.
Totally. Yes.
Yeah. So this bounce back mindset, I guess, doesn't just impact us. It can also be an expectation that partners, family members, other people in our family and our support circle can have on us as well. And so how do these pressure of like bouncing back, or I guess, how do you think that impacts intimacy in terms of a romantic relationship with your partner?
Yes, that's a great question. And thankfully, I am in a place in my life that wasn't a problem.
Yeah.
Very supportive husband. But I know this can be a thing for people and talk through this with my clients sometimes as well. So, yes, I think when it comes to relationship with your partner, I don't know if you would agree with this, but if your partner is making comments about your body or, questioning why haven't you lost the weight yet, or should you be eating that? I know even if it comes from a place of, I love you and I want the best for you and I know this is important to you. I'm trying to support you in that journey, but that can take it a step too far, right? Of, questioning, why are you eating that? Or maybe you should go out for a walk, right? Just, I think, yes, there's, a way to approach these things with love. And I think it can be very a hard sort of like waters to navigate, right?
Yeah.
Because especially again, in that early postpartum phase, I know I can't speak for everybody, but a lot of women are very vulnerable, right? So even a well-meaning comment can be taken as, oh, you hate how I look. And so I think I would say talk to a therapist for sure, right? Because it can be hard for everyone. It's such a new time. No one knows how they're going to feel in that early postpartum phase, whether you're the person that birthed a human or whether you're the partner.
Yeah.
It can bring up a lot, right? And I think it can kind of show different sides of people that maybe you've never seen, right? So I'd say, definitely talk through that with a therapist if you're finding there's a disconnect there. And it can for sure affect intimacy too, right? Because if you're feeling, a certain way about your body, you're not going to want to be intimate with your partner, right? Potentially. And I think, going back to the self-love and the self-compassion piece too, I know I just had a conversation with a client about this, that her husband was very supportive and very loving and coming from a very wonderful place of like, I love your body. I think you look amazing. And she was like, ugh, no. Like she was very dismissive of his comments because she didn't feel that herself, right? So practicing that self-compassion piece, and again, it takes time. Probably takes, if you have the means to work with a therapist so that you can accept those comments, right? Even if you don't believe them, you can say, thank you, But if there's that disconnect, your husband saying you look amazing or your partner saying you look wonderful, but you don't feel that way, that pressure to look a certain way can really filter into that relationship. And I think families can put that pressure on too, again, just depending on where your parents and your grandparents are at in their journey of how they feel about their own bodies, right? I think, I don't know about you, but I know my mom was like thick in diet culture thinking.
Same.
Growing up.
It was that time.
Yeah.
Like, there was such like a big focus on that, but yes.
Yes. Yeah. So my mom was always dieting and always, low fat everything. And I lost my mom, so she wasn't around to see me have my children, but I know she was around when my sister had her first kiddo, and thankfully again, that's not something we dealt with in our family, but I know it can happen where there might be comments of like, oh, by this point I was already, back to my normal weight, or I was back to doing this, or so
during pregnancy, I've heard of moms or mother-in-laws being like, you weigh this much now that you're pregnant? Oh, I was that at the end of my pregnancy.
Right.
Or, I wasn't even close to that. There's just so much. Compare it. Can we just stop? Like,
I know.
Why is this a thing? Like,
I know.
Just don't comment on women's bodies at all.
In general.
Yeah.
Period.
General.
Yes.
Exactly.
Which can be so hard. And again, I know this is something I'm just trying to do better at too, because it's, again, sometimes comes from a good place where we might comment on someone postpartum and say, wow, you look amazing.
Yeah.
And that, naturally implies that they've probably lost some weight, or they look, even if that's not what you're intending, that's how people will take it. So I try not to say those things, right? Even if I'm thinking it. I try to just say like, how are you doing? Or, motherhood looks so good on you. Like, you look great. No, yeah, maybe not. You look great. That's see how hard it is, right?
It's really hard.
But you're doing amazing, or something that's not appearance related, because we don't know what that person's going through, right? Whether they're postpartum or not. If you see someone that's maybe lost visible weight, they could be going through postpartum depression, anxiety.
Yeah.
We don't know why they've lost the weight, right? And so we can't assume that it was a needed, wanted thing. So yes, I think just blanket statement. Let's try all to do better. And this is something I'm still working on, of not commenting on bodies if we can.
It's hard to do that unlearning. I've talked about this in a previous episode, like in Latino culture, like everybody's commenting on your body. I don't know why, but it's a thing, and it's kind of difficult to unlearn that. But I think we're actively now trying to focus on other ways to compliment our friends or people around us in a way that isn't so focused on their body. And that's good, but we're going to struggle through it, right? We might trip over our words when we're trying to like give somebody a compliment, but that's all part of like the learning process.
For sure.
In terms of like relationship, intimacy, partners maybe having unrealistic expectation of this new mom, I think a lot of that, to what you said, yes, communication and maybe seeking the help of a therapist is helpful. If you're in a relationship that I would hope is a safe relationship, then communication can be something that can happen with your partner. So communicating with your partner about your feelings and your insecurities with your new body and how your body has changed and what you're hoping and how you're feeling, and communicating to your partner what's helpful for them to say versus what isn't. Because as you've said, like, and this is something that, is a conversation that I remember me and my husband having, where I was like, I want to work out, to focus on my strength, to do all of these things that is like not solely I'm going to lose weight focused. Can you help me with that? And then there would be, again, like, poor guy, but like there would be comments of like, well, shouldn't you maybe go for a walk right now? And I'd bite his head off because I'm like, don't tell me. He's like, I don't know what to do.
Yes. You want me to support you?
You want me to support you and like encourage you and motivate you, but I don't know how to do it. And so it was a conversation that we needed to have to be like, okay, the way that you frame this kind of triggers me, makes me really mad. And but if you approach it this way, that might be a little bit more helpful. Or if you invite me to come along with you on something that you're doing, a workout that you're doing, a walk that you're doing, that's going to feel a little bit more open instead of kind of like this idea I have of you wanting me to look this way. And again, thankfully, like my partner was very supportive through all of that. But I also want to, give kudos to those partners who are trying their hardest to be supportive and sometimes not saying the right thing or having to kind of navigate through that. But if there is like a positive way for you to communicate with your partner, just in terms of how you feel, that can be really helpful. And then setting those boundaries, like, don't comment on my body, don't comment on what I'm eating. I would appreciate this, this, and this. Those things can just help our partners understand where we're at and what we're needing, and not being scared to ask for what we need. I think as
For sure.
women, naturally, we can have a hard time focusing on our needs and being direct enough to communicate that. So in your relationship, really trying to communicate what you are needing in that moment. Maybe I need, compassion today because I'm having a really hard day, or I'm having a really hard body day. I need compassion, whatever. Being able to communicate that to your partner.
Yeah.
But I can relate to the client that you had, because my partner, again, was very supportive and encouraging, and like, throwing the compliments everywhere, but they weren't landing. I
Yeah.
was so, again, like, unrealistic expectation I had on my postpartum body. And so I wasn't absorbing any of the compliments he was giving. And so it took a little bit of time for me to be like, okay, yes, thank you. And to like kind of be in that space and allow those compliments to actually like come in and make
For
me
sure.
feel good. But it took a little bit of time. But that again comes with our history of our body image,
Yeah.
the history that we may have with eating and relationship with food, relationship with our body, and all of that can be historical, and then it just comes back to us when we're dealing with all of those changes that are happening postpartum. And
For
so
sure.
being patient with yourself too. And I know, like, right now we're talking about, the safe relationships that you have where you are able to communicate. There may be unsafe relationships that you have, whether that's with family members, your partner, where those comments are really triggering and there is a negative tone to them. Like, I expect you to look this
Yeah.
way after, or you have to go to the gym to do all of these things. And in those situations, just be really mindful in terms of what you are needing for yourself and setting those boundaries with family members. So please don't comment on my body, or my body's still recovering. I don't need this pressure. Anything that you can say or do. And sometimes setting those boundaries out loud is really hard.
For
So
sure.
trying to find maybe more indirect ways to kind of set those boundaries. So maybe you're not, going to talk to, for example, like your mother-in-law about your postpartum body, because you know that those might be the comments that are coming. So then you have safe people that you can go to talk about some of those challenges. But it's hard.
It's so hard. Yeah. And I think, you saying communicating your needs, I don't know if this is something that comes up with your clients, but I struggled to be like, what do I need?
Yeah,
I think,
for sure.
again, comes back to sort of like cultural norms that women, we aren't often asked, like, what do you need? Right. It's just suck it up. You're a great mom. Just, martyr yourself essentially, right? To
Yeah.
be the best mom that you can be and forget about your wants and needs. So I think that was a big part of my journey too, is like, my husband was always really good. He could tell if I was stressed or overwhelmed. He's like, I think you need to just go to Starbucks and spend 15 minutes there, even if it's just to get a coffee. And I was like, yeah, you know what? That does sound good.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, having a partner that probably knows you better than you is really helpful. And I'm getting so much better at it now and starting to recognize the things that do help me feel better, and just having sort of like either a physical list somewhere or a mental list of these are the things that I need when I'm feeling a certain way. And even if you're, tempted to just do nothing, it's like, okay, look at that list and pick one of those things, and it's going to help you feel a bit better.
And that's a great idea. Have a note on your phone that you can go to, because there's going to be moments when we're so overwhelmed that we really can't think about what we need. At least we have that little note on our phone that we can go through and just kind of see like, ooh, which one feels good for right now. But the getting out of the house for a coffee is huge. I think that's like, even sitting in the car.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know what it is about the car, but when you know that there's a kiddo inside of the house with your partner, and
Yeah.
you're just coming back from like maybe grabbing coffee or running some errand, sitting in the car for like a few minutes is so nice.
Yes. Yeah, I know, because my second daughter was born in 2019. So it was like COVID time. So that
Yeah.
obviously made things much harder too. And so honestly, that's something I would do often. My husband would be like, hey, get out of the house. So I would leave, I'd go get a coffee, literally sit in the parking lot, listen to a podcast,
Yeah.
bring my book, and literally sit in the car for like whatever time I had.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was very, very helpful.
And something that you mentioned beforehand too that can help with like kind of how we're feeling is also having people on social media that are body positive or that are at least normalizing normal bodies. The Bird's Papaya,
Yes, she's
I love
amazing. She
Sarah
came to my
Landry.
brain too. Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
she is so amazing, and how she talks about her postpartum body. And she talks a lot about that celebration,
Yep.
right? Celebration of pregnancy, and then this expectation to like go back to what your body looked like before, which it's, I mean, for some people it goes back, maybe, sure, but like mine definitely came back with stretch marks, all of these like changes in my
Yep.
stomach and everything, and it's fine, right? Like, and I do think the Bird's Papaya is so great because she talks and normalizes the, you know, the loose skin that we can have, the stretch marks that we can have, all of these things, and just a very positive kind of approach.
For sure.
And the way she talks and everything. So yeah, kind of filling your support system, your Instagram, wherever you're kind of, you know, always tuned into, putting some things in there that are going to be helpful for us.
Yeah.
Similarly to how we kind of do like a block unfollow boundary, you know, filling it up with things and people and influencers that are going to help us feel good about ourselves.
Totally. Yes. Yeah. That's a
Yeah.
big part of it.
Yeah. So, I mean, we've kind of jumped around a little bit, but coming back to family members, what do you think would be helpful for family members? I mean, we talked a little bit about it, but what do you think would be helpful for family members to kind of shift from this expectation of mom going back to normal, quote unquote, and more towards like supporting healthy healing after pregnancy?
Yeah, I think goes back to similar to what you were saying about with in your relationship is just if you feel comfortable and confident to have those open, honest conversations with those family members, right? And understanding and having compassion for where they are coming from. Just thinking about like relationships in my life, you know, if my mom was still alive, like having some of those conversations would be uncomfortable for her because all she's ever known is I have to shrink my body at all costs, right? And so honestly, I feel like it's such a good chance to start to change the narrative with people around you, right? And I know, you know, sometimes people are going to be so ingrained in their thoughts that that might not happen, but yeah, I think just having those open, honest, vulnerable conversations with those loved ones about how you're feeling and, you know, letting them know I'm starting to shift how I look at my body and how I look at my healing journey. And I want to focus more so on how I'm feeling versus how I'm looking. And I would just be very grateful if you could support me in that and just being mindful of, the comments you make about my body. And I think just having those open, honest conversations, which can be very challenging, I understand.
Yeah. And like if you are a loved one of somebody who just had a baby or is pregnant or whatever, check your expectations. And I say that with so much kindness, but like check your expectations. Where are they coming from? Are they realistic? Can you challenge those unrealistic expectations at all? And really trying to communicate to your partner around what their own expectations may be of themselves or of you as you go through this journey. But it can definitely, like, those vulnerable, uncomfortable conversations are very helpful.
Yes.
Or they can definitely be, because unfortunately, none of us are mind readers. We need to be able to communicate about the things that we are wanting, needing, feeling, all of those things. And that's just really going to help that relationship as well.
Yeah. And I think for me, the motivation for changing how I talked about my body and about food came back to how I want to raise my kids too, right? And I think that those are important conversations. And this can be tricky, I understand, with parents and in-laws potentially that, again, have very sort of like ingrained thoughts and behaviors and patterns about things. But for me, that was a huge motivation, is how do I want my kids, what world do I want my kids to grow up in regards to how they feel about their body and how they see me talk about my body and how we talk about food, which again can be tricky. I know I run into situations, especially in regards to food, of very old school beliefs of you have to finish everything and you can't waste food. And whereas I try to come in our household from a place of listening to your body. When you're full, stop eating, and listening to how certain foods make you feel versus others. Not saying they're good or bad. It's just certain foods going to make you maybe feel not great in your belly, right? And so trying to come from a place of that, which sometimes the older generation doesn't understand. So yes, it can be very challenging. And yes, all that unlearning takes time and
Yeah.
practice.
And patience.
Yeah.
Be patient, because that unlearning, it's ingrained in us because we were in it for such a long time. So
For sure.
doing things differently and breaking those cycles, it is part of like, we're going to trip, we're going to fall, we're going to mess up. But as long as we're being consistent and continuing and being patient with ourselves, it can definitely be helpful.
Yeah.
What are some practical steps that moms and partners can take to push back against this pressure to bounce back? Did we already talk about this? Is there anything else?
Yeah. I think for sure, coming back to like the self-compassion piece, I think, and focusing on, for me, I talk from a place of like strength training, getting back to fitness and exercise, of what is my why? Why do I want to be here? Why do I want to be strength training? Right. And so I understand and I appreciate and I validate when folks come to me with weight loss goals and wanting to shrink and change their body, and because of that pressure. And I say, okay, let's talk about that, but let's also talk about long term, why do you want to keep moving your body, right?
Yeah.
For many of us, it's always been weight loss, right? And that's all well and good. However, if you are early postpartum, if you are sick, if you are injured, there's going to be reasons that we can't maybe work out to the intensity that we feel like we should, quote unquote, to look a certain way. So starting to recognize there's so many benefits to movement outside of shrinking our body. So can I start to shift my focus on, I want to feel strong, I want to have energy, I want to keep up with my kids and maybe play sports with them. I start to think about, how do I want to feel? I'm in my 40s now. So how do I want to feel throughout my 40s into perimenopause and menopause? How do I want to feel when I'm 50, 60, that's what I try to focus on. And then that really skews and changes how I view exercise, instead of having always to be this crazy, intense, complicated thing where I'm dripping sweat and I'm breathing heavily and it's 10 out of 10 every time.
Yeah.
Just saying that, like, that's not sustainable. Right?
Yeah.
So starting to slowly shift your mindset about what exercise like should look like, and having it be a bit broader view. And one of my taglines is always, all movement counts.
Yeah.
So recognizing little bits of movement really does make a big difference. So that's a big piece of what I talk with my clients about is, shifting away from that. Exercise has to be intense, and shifting towards moving your body in a way that's going to feel good for the long term.
And shifting away exercise equaling weight loss, because I think like even pelvic floor exercise, I know I do like a lot of strength training, but a lot of that I do because my back hasn't been the same since pregnancy. And so doing and strengthening my back actually helps me have less pain and like feel stronger and be able to like be around my kiddos and chase after them, all of those things. And so really kind of, I think I can speak about myself, but like for so long, exercise equaled weight loss. That was the only thing it was good for. I had to work out so I could lose weight. But somewhere in there, I was able to kind of reframe and shift that mindset into, well, no, I want to exercise because I want to feel stronger. I want to be able to lift my 7-year-old who sometimes like, I don't know how he like monkey jumps on me, and I have to like be able to catch him and hold him and twirl him and like lift him up to like do things. Like my focus has really changed as I became a mom, to focus more on strength and keeping up with my kiddos. Because again, I was winded and out of breath just chasing them like at the park. I'm like, I can't do this. I need to be able to catch up with them.
For sure.
And so that kind of shift definitely, like it's a big way to kind of view, and also like impacts your motivation to work out. If you're constantly focusing on like exercise equaling weight loss, and it's not it's not kind of being noticed on the scale or in the clothing that you wear, all of those things, then it's going to not make you feel good. But if your motivation changes to strength, you notice those changes. Like I was curling 15s, now I'm curling 20s. Like, yay. There's that change. I'm keeping up with my kiddo now, or whatever it could be. There's just so many more ways for us to notice our progress.
Yes, exactly.
Instead of just focusing on on the loss or the scale.
Yep. Yeah. And I talk a lot about the all or nothing mindset when it
Yeah.
comes to exercise. And I had to work through that a lot in my journey. And yes, exactly. Like you said, if the focus is solely weight loss, you'll find yourself living in that all or nothing thinking. So it's either I'm all in, I'm following this like complicated program, I'm doing it every day, I'm crushing it. Or if I fall off the wagon, I might as well do nothing. What's the point? F it, I'm just going to quit, right? So I talk through that a lot with clients of finding, I always say like the messy middle of, moving our body in a way that's going to feel good. And we don't have to push to that 10 out of 10 extreme all the time. But also it's self-compassion and self-kindness to not always do nothing. Right? I think that can be tricky too.
Yeah.
Because we want those like black and white rules. But being kind to ourselves, like you just said, if I start to, talk through my clients about if they're dealing with back pain, neck stiffness, whatever it might be, often you start to learn your body's communicating to you. Can you please move me? Right?
Yeah.
But move me in a way that's going to feel good, not this extreme hardcore intense thing that's going to make me more sore.
Yeah.
So finding that messy middle of moving in a way that's meeting your body where it's at, honoring what it's going through in that moment, whether that's postpartum, post-injury, whatever that is. And then trying to live in that middle ground, which can be very hard again, because it's not like this black or white thing. It's finding that messy middle, which I like to help my clients find that.
And it's not going to happen in a day.
No.
It's going to, even for me, it takes me a little bit of time to like, okay, looking at the gray area right now, not the all or nothing. So
yeah. Every day is a new adventure. And I think that's that skill of, listening to your body. Okay, body, what are you telling me today? And again, sometimes people are like tempted to think my body's sore, I'm going to rest. But sometimes it's my body is sore, I'm going to move it in a gentle way. And that's going to help me feel better.
Yeah. So maybe the goal isn't to bounce back, but instead it's to kind of move forward with compassion, patience, support, and kind of embracing the changes, which again, not always easy to do, but being patient with ourselves is definitely going to help. And again, if you're a new mom that's listening, like your body just did something extraordinary, and healing takes time, and you don't need to do it alone. I think we're all kind of in this experience together. I think, again, both of our experiences alone we both kind of felt similar ways in our postpartum. And so you're not alone in this, and just be gentle and kind to yourself.
Yes. And one thing that I always remind myself that helps is my body is always going to be changing.
Yeah.
Right? I think we did this to ourselves probably even before, I don't know if you did, but I did before I had kids, right? It was like, I would compare my 25-year-old body to my 16-year-old body. And when you think of it that way, like how ridiculous is that, right?
Yeah.
Like, of course your body's going to be different. So when you think about growing and birthing a human, of course your body's going to be changed and different. Why would we expect it to look like we did before kids? It's so many things have happened physiologically, mentally, emotionally, right? So just reminding yourself, like my body's always going to be changing, and finding again that self-compassion about that. Okay, cool. Let's just accept that. And especially as you move into, perimenopause, menopause, so many changes are going to be happening. And if you're always fighting against it and always comparing your now self to like a former self, that's going to be a tough battle.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that you think is important to share to our listeners?
I think just reminding yourself that you are doing the best that you can. This is the early postpartum phase, especially, is so challenging. I definitely had a really hard time personally. I always am open about that. First couple of months were always so hard for me. And it is so worth it to start to challenge and look at how you view your body, how you talk about and think about food, and how you think about exercise, and trying to slowly improve those relationships. Honestly, it was a hard journey for me, but I'm so thankful because I just have such a better, healthier view on all of these things now. And now I can pass that to my girls. Right. And so, if you can kind of think of it that way, one of my a post I did a long time ago that landed for a lot of people, instead of focusing on bouncing back, thinking about growing forward. right? So yeah, the bounce back, let's just like call it what it is. It's such BS. Let's just cancel that and yeah, focus on growing and learning forward, because that's, again, things are always going to be changing and happening to our body. So focus on that.
And it's focused on future.
Yeah.
Bouncing back, you're going back towards something. So I love
Yep.
that going forward. And focus on your healing. Your body is like just did some crazy stuff to bring out this beautiful bundle of joy. And so your body is healing. Your body takes some time to heal. And depending on what your delivery story was, you might need a little bit more time. And so being really patient with yourself as your body is changing and not forcing it, or not going into like wild exercises so quickly in the beginning, because that can be harmful. So just focusing in on healing, being patient, being compassionate. And yeah, I think again, like, we could keep talking forever.
I know.
I mean, just theme of our episode, compassion and patience.
Yes.
But thank you so much, Rhonda, for being here today. Where can people find you?
Yeah, so you can find me on Instagram, so at Rhonda Chamberlain PT. I'm not as active on there, but I do have a lot of information that you can scroll back to. My website is the same, so rhondachamberlainpt.com. I am working virtually and at Encompass Health and Wellness in Kitchener, so all of that is on my website. I have virtual appointment, one-on-one appointments that you can book with me. So I created that when I started my business. It was actually pre-pandemic, but pandemic hit, obviously it was a very needed service and continues to be needed, in the sense that you can see me one-on-one virtually to help you ease back into fitness from the comfort of your own home. So you don't need to find childcare, just use the equipment you have in your house. So I always recommend just get a couple sets of dumbbells, and I can help you there. If I know post-pandemic, a lot of people are craving that in-person piece. So if you want to see me in person, then yes, Encompass Health and Wellness in Kitchener. I'm there on Mondays and Thursdays right now. And same thing, just love to help people ease back into fitness in a way that works for them and honors where they're at in their healing journey.
And you mentioned something about a group in January.
Yeah, so I do offer group physiotherapy classes as well. So this is sort of a newer thing that I started in the spring of last year, and it's been incredible. So I do an assessment with everyone, and so then it's billable as physiotherapy, but then we meet as a group. So small group, 6 people or less, and you can bring your baby, and we talk about all these things that we talked about today. And I help you with that guided intro to get back into fitness, honoring your pelvic health, honoring any symptoms that you're dealing with, and just help you start to build that strength in a way that's realistic and sustainable. So my fall classes are currently full, but I will start that up again in January. And I also introduced a virtual option too. So that's an option as well.
Yeah, that's amazing. We'll have all of that in the show notes. And I love the group. That's such a great sense of community, especially like in postpartum when it can be really isolating.
For sure.
So that's amazing. Make sure to check out Rhonda on Instagram and her website. We'll put it all in the show notes. And thank you so much again for being here. This was so wonderful. Make sure to follow us on Outside the Therapy Room. Next week, we are going to be talking about children's meditation. So make sure to stay tuned on that one. We'll see you guys next time. Thanks again, Rhonda.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to Outside the Therapy Room. This podcast is intended for educational and entertainment purposes only. If you reside in Ontario and are interested in working with one of our therapists, please visit our website in the show notes. If you reside outside of Ontario, a quick Google search or search through Psychology Today will help you find a therapist near you.